Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a really deep plunge into the wisdom of, well, one of the world's most influential entrepreneurs, Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba.
Hmm.
Our source material for this deep dive, it comes from these really powerful excerpts from his famous motivational speech, Motivation for Success.
Right.
And our mission basically is clear. We want to extract the core insights, maybe some surprising nuggets that, propelled him from all that failure to global success. And more importantly, what that means for your own journey. Because this isn't just about business strategy, is it? It's about a mindset.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating, I think, as we dig into this is how we'll uncover Ma's belief that success isn't really about being the smartest person in the room. It's more about, cultivating this unique relationship with failure, having a super clear vision, and, well, fundamentally rethinking your approach to the future. He just has this uncanny ability to turn what most people see as like major anxieties into these incredible opportunities.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that right away because his journey was definitely not a straight line, was it? He has this really powerful, almost blunt way of saying it. He said, if you succeed, every mistake becomes a legendary story.
Hmm.
But if you fail, well, that's just garbage. But then this is the same guy who talks openly about his own, extensive history of setbacks, failing school, struggling for jobs, getting rejected from university. So how do you square that tough quote with his own reality?
Well, that really raises the core question, doesn't it? How do you shift from seeing failure as, garbage to seeing it as potentially legendary? And Ma's advice here, it's actually profoundly simple, but really challenging to put into practice. He believes that if someone blames others for their failures, that person has no chance.
Hmm.
But he goes on, those people who fail and always think, it was my fault, those guys, he says, have opportunities.
Hmm.
He insists he learned so much from people who failed around him and definitely from his own mistakes. He even admits, at Alibaba, they made stupid decisions almost every day. But the key was learning, right? Learning and moving forward. And this cultivated this almost counterintuitive attitude where he kind of expects failure,
Yeah.
which weirdly leads to optimism because success then feels like a nice surprise.
Okay, right. And here's where it gets, for me, really interesting and sort of upside down. Ma famously said, when everybody complains, that is the opportunity.
Yeah.
And he even admitted that at first he thought guys like Bill Gates and Larry Ellison had, taken all the wonderful opportunities in tech already. So how did he get past that feeling that the giants had already won?
Yeah, and if you connect that to the bigger picture, he basically shifted his whole focus. Instead of aiming for like grand things right away,
Yeah.
he learned to support and help the people around me do tiny things, just small things. And Alibaba's start is the perfect example, isn't it? No money, no technology, no people, just 18 people in his apartment deciding, okay, let's help small businesses get online. So this willingness to start small, even when it seemed impossible, and just constantly learning from mistakes, even the stupid ones, that's what built Alibaba's foundation. It really shows the power of starting small, iterating, and just believing you can solve a real problem.
So, okay, you've embraced this view of failure. You see opportunity in complaints. What does that mean for actually building something impactful? I mean, Alibaba going from 18 people to, what, 60,000 employees in 18 years? That wasn't because Jack Ma thought he was smart. He actually insists he's not. He says he works with smart people.
Right.
And he believes, fundamentally, that it's not easy to be successful quickly. He put it simply, everything we do, we prepare for 10 years. 10 years.
And what's fascinating there is the contrast he draws, right,
Oh.
between his approach and what he calls most smart people, who he says always want to do successful things, quick, easy things.
Hmm.
Bao's whole philosophy seems rooted in winning 10 years later.
Hmm.
And he adds this really unique idea about luck, too, doesn't he? Believing that to be lucky, you have to give your luck to the others.
Yeah.
It's like this reciprocal giving is how you sustain luck long term, building support, not just grabbing quick wins.
Yeah, and his global ambition is also pretty striking. Even the name, right? Alibaba. It's not Chinese, it's Arabic.
Mm.
He picked it deliberately to signal, hey, this is global from day one. Born in China, enable the world.
Mm-hmm.
He sees Alibaba as the company of this century, like Microsoft or IBM were for theirs. But with a specific focus, he says. Supporting global small and medium-sized companies, global young people, and making sure women can have more jobs online. That's a huge vision.
Yeah, and you might wonder, okay, that's a big vision, but how did he actually, put it into action? He gives this great example from Russia, where Alibaba's AliExpress isn't just selling stuff online, it's about tackling really basic infrastructure issues like logistics, He tells this story about a Russian girl who thought 45-day delivery was great.
Wow, 45 days.
Right. When his goal for AliExpress was like 48 to 72 hours. And he immediately saw that gap, that massive difference, as an opportunity for young people to fix. And similarly with payments, right? He talks about needing modern payment systems everywhere, even using the example of beggars in China using mobile payment. Like, that's the benchmark for accessibility. It just shows how he sees these huge everyday problems and frames them as massive business opportunities.
Okay, and maybe one of the most counterintuitive bits of advice he gives about finding those opportunities, he says, if an idea comes to him and everybody says it's a good idea, I normally throw it into the rubbish.
Right.
But he says, if everybody says this is going to be very tough, I'm very interested. So what does that actually tell us about real innovation? How do you even apply that thinking?
Well, I think it's more than just being different. You know, Ma's pointed to the fact that there's often less competition in the really hard problems. When everyone else is saying, oh, that's too difficult, or they're skeptical, that's often where the real, the blue ocean opportunity lies. But it takes, foresight to see the potential there. And frankly, immense courage to go after it when the path is unclear and your challenges look huge. Most people avoid that kind of difficulty. So if you embrace it, you just face less competition. Simple as that almost.
Right. So switching gears a bit. A huge worry for so many people today, probably for us too, is the future. Jobs, technology, AI, big data, cloud computing. Ma addresses this head on. His message is pretty simple. Don't worry about the future. He argues, yeah, technology replaces stupid jobs, but it ends up creating more jobs in the long run. He points to history, right? The steam engine, electricity. It's optimistic, but how does he really back that up?
Yeah, and his take on why humans ultimately win over machines is really insightful, I think. He believes that human beings, we have belief, we have religion, we have a heart, which a machine does not have. Machines might get stronger or calculate faster, sure, but they can never be as wise as human beings. And this leads straight to his advice for how you prepare for the future. Don't focus on memorizing stuff or calculating faster. Computers will always beat us there. Instead, he urges us, try to be creative, try to be innovative, try to be constructive. That's where our unique human value, our wisdom actually lies.
He also gives some surprising advice on where not to focus your energy. He tells people, don't worry about the things other people worry about.
Right.
Especially don't worry about the things president and prime minister worry about. Just focus on your own path, he says, making a living, doing something fun, interesting, helping others. And then he adds, in this very blunt, competitive way, crying doesn't make any sense. Arguing you should instead make competitors cry. It's definitely direct.
And that really connects, I think, to the bigger picture he paints about human connection and culture being even more important than just, say, language skills. He uses that powerful example of Nixon and Mao, right? Making this huge global deal without even sharing a common language, highlighting that it's the vision, it's the belief that you have that changes the world. So he emphasizes learning a language isn't just about the words, it's about truly understanding, appreciating, respecting the other culture. That's crucial, he thinks, for making friends, for doing business globally. And his little anecdote about, perceived Russian toughness versus Chinese gentleness being maybe due to the climate, that perfectly shows that kind of deep cultural insight. It's about seeing how environment shapes people, shapes business.
And finally, just on this point of success, Ma says, nobody can do anything alone. It seems obvious, but he stresses it. What you should do is always form a team. And he's humble about it too, right? Admits he's not a tech guy, says he only knows how to send emails. But his success came from inviting the best engineers and scientists and actually listening to them. It's a great point about leveraging collective smarts. So, okay, let's bring all this together. What does it mean for your career journey, especially if you're younger, just starting out? Jack Ma offers a surprisingly structured blueprint, almost like a timeline for your career based on age.
Yeah, it does raise the question of how you apply this across a whole lifetime, doesn't it? And his suggestions are pretty clear. So for those 20 to 30 years old, he says, please find a good boss, not necessarily a good company. The key is to learn from the boss, learn how to do it. He really emphasizes that a boss who trains you, disciplines you, teaches you what's right, that's way more valuable than just a fancy company name. It's about that foundational learning, the mentorship.
Right, the boss over the brand, basically.
Exactly. Then when you're 30 to 40 years old, he says, try to do something yourself if you really want to try. So this is the decade for maybe taking a risk, trying entrepreneurship, using what you learned. From 40 to 50 years old, the advice shifts. Do things that you are good at. Now it's about leveraging all that experience, the wisdom you've gained over 20 years. Focus on your strengths, what you've mastered.
Makes sense. Focus time.
Then when you hit 50 to 60 years old, he suggests spend your time supporting young people.
It becomes about mentorship, giving back, sharing what you know with the next generation.
Paying it forward.
Precisely. And finally, over 60 years old, his advice is simple: spend time with your grandchildren. A nice reminder of, what really matters later on.
It really does drive home his core and message, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That nothing is easy, nothing is free.
Mm.
He and his team, they worked, as he says, much harder than most of the people, traveling 867 hours a year, working constantly.
Incredible hours. And the confidence you need for that, he stresses it comes from your customers and your team, not from outside advisors or, experts who he thinks are often just yesterday's thinkers. And in that classic Ma twist, if your competitors are actually trying to destroy your confidence, he says, that means you are good. It's a sign you're on to something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, his message really isn't about trying to copy his exact steps, is it? It's about adopting that mindset that consistently sees opportunity where most people just see problems. And understanding that real wisdom, the kind he talks about, comes from this unique blend of creativity, resilience, and really prioritizing human connection and cultural understanding. It's a much more holistic view of success.
Wow, what an incredible journey through Jack Ma's thinking, really. From embracing failure almost as a prerequisite to thinking globally from day one, being unconventional, trusting your team, your customers. His insights are just so powerful, and they apply way beyond just business, I think.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day, maybe think about this provocative thought from Jack Ma. He said, today is very tough. Tomorrow is more tougher. The day after tomorrow is beautiful, but most people die tomorrow evening. So the question for you is, what tough thing are you willing to push through today and tomorrow to make sure you reach that beautiful day after tomorrow?